Imagine being born inside a tiny wooden cabin in extreme poverty and one day becoming the most powerful man in the United States. Imagine losing almost everything again and again, failing repeatedly, being humiliated in public, and still changing the destiny of millions of people forever. Abraham Lincoln was not born a hero. He was not born rich. He was not born powerful. In fact, everything suggested he would become just another forgotten man in history. But there was something different inside him, something that neither hunger, failure, nor war could destroy. And perhaps the most remarkable part is this: the man who saved the United States carried such deep sadness inside him that many believed he could never truly be happy. Because before becoming president, before the historic speeches, before the Civil War, there was only a poor boy trying to survive in a brutal America. Abraham Lincoln was born in 1809 in Kentucky, inside a small log cabin with no luxury at all. His family was extremely poor. There was no comfort, no opportunity. From a very young age, Lincoln had to work hard just to survive. He chopped wood, carried heavy loads, and worked in the fields. Life was incredibly difficult even for a child. But there was something unusual about that tall, thin boy. He was obsessed with learning. At that time, books were rare for poor families. Even so, Lincoln walked miles just to borrow one. And whenever he got a book, he devoured every page as if his life depended on it. At night, while everyone else slept, he read beside the weak light of the fireplace because there were not enough candles in the house. Then tragedy arrived early. When Lincoln was only 9 years old, his mother died, and something inside him broke forever. People close to him later said Abraham never completely recovered from that pain. The quiet, thoughtful boy became even more silent, more distant, more introspective. But perhaps it was exactly in that suffering that the strength to change the world was born. As Lincoln grew older, he began noticing something disturbing about the United States: slavery. Men, women, and children treated as property. Human beings bought and sold like objects, and it deeply disturbed him. But at that moment, Lincoln was still just an ordinary man trying to find his place in the world. And the truth is, he failed many times before succeeding. He tried opening a business, failed; tried making money, failed; tried entering politics, lost, and lost again and again. Imagine hearing constantly that you are not good enough, that you would never succeed. Most men would have given up. But Lincoln seemed driven by something almost impossible to explain. The more life knocked him down, the more determined he became to keep moving forward. Eventually, he became a lawyer, and even without formal education, he became famous for his extraordinary honesty. People said Lincoln was incapable of lying just to make money. In a world filled with corruption and manipulation, that seemed almost unbelievable. People began trusting him, and slowly Abraham Lincoln started rising politically. But then came the issue that would divide the United States in half: slavery. Southern states depended economically on enslaved people. Many northern states wanted slavery limited or abolished. The country was becoming a ticking time bomb ready to explode. And that was exactly when Lincoln stepped into the center of history. He began giving increasingly powerful speeches against the expansion of slavery, not because he was perfect, not because he started as a radical revolutionary, but because he believed a country could not survive permanently divided between freedom and slavery. Then came the most explosive election in American history, 1860. Against all expectations, Abraham Lincoln won, and immediately chaos began. Before he even officially became president, Southern states started leaving the Union. They believed Lincoln would destroy their way of life. The country was collapsing before his eyes. Imagine that pressure. Lincoln did not inherit a peaceful nation. He inherited a ticking bomb. And then the inevitable happened. The American Civil War began, brother against brother. Families destroyed. Cities burning. Hundreds of thousands dead. It became the bloodiest war in American history, and Abraham Lincoln carried the weight of it every single day. Many people hated him. Some considered him weak. Others called him a tyrant. Newspapers attacked him constantly. Generals failed. Soldiers died by the thousands. And while the country bled, Lincoln sank deeper and deeper into sadness. Historical reports suggest he suffered from severe depression. Sometimes he seemed completely consumed by sorrow. But even then, he continued moving forward. Because Lincoln believed that if the United States collapsed at that moment, democracy itself might collapse with it. Then came the moment that changed history forever. 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. In practice, it declared millions of enslaved people in the rebellious states free. Think about the magnitude of that. A man born in poverty inside a tiny cabin was changing the destiny of millions of lives. But the decision made people hate him even more. Many wanted him dead, and even knowing that, Lincoln refused to back down. As the war continued, Abraham visited hospitals filled with wounded soldiers. He spoke with broken families. He read letters from mothers who had lost sons. For him, the war was not just political, it was deeply human. And perhaps no moment reveals this better than one of the most famous speeches in history, Gettysburg. After a horrifying battle that left thousands of bodies scattered across the ground, Lincoln gave a speech lasting only a few minutes. Short, simple, but powerful enough to echo through centuries. He spoke about equality, about freedom, about a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And those words became immortal. But even with important victories, the war felt endless. Until finally the South began losing strength. In 1865, after years of bloodshed and destruction, the Confederate States started surrendering. The war was ending, slavery was nearing its end, and for the first time in years, Abraham Lincoln could finally imagine a different future for the United States. People celebrated in the streets. Soldiers returned home. It felt like the beginning of a new era. But then, tragedy struck. On the night of April 14th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln went to the theater to watch a play. For the first time in a long while, he seemed relaxed, exhausted perhaps, but hopeful. Then a man quietly entered the presidential box. His name was John Wilkes Booth, a famous actor, and also a furious extremist who hated Lincoln. Without warning, without any chance to defend himself, Booth shot the president in the head. The theater exploded into chaos, screaming, panic, terror. While Booth escaped shouting political slogans, Lincoln remained motionless. The next morning, Abraham Lincoln died. And in that moment, millions of people felt as if something enormous had been ripped away from the world. The man who preserved the United States, the man who helped destroy slavery, the man born poor and underestimated, had become immortal. But here is the most incredible part of all. Lincoln was not perfect. He had doubts, fears, failures. deep sadness. And perhaps that is exactly what makes his story so powerful, because he proves that great men are not born strong, they become strong while surviving suffering. More than 150 years later, Abraham Lincoln is still remembered as one of the greatest leaders in history, not because he was invincible, but because he kept moving forward even when everything seemed lost. And maybe that is the true reason his story still inspires so many people today. Because deep down, all of us fight internal wars, all of us fail, all of us think about giving up at some point. But Lincoln shows us that sometimes the most unlikely people can change the entire world. Now tell me something. Do you think Abraham Lincoln was the greatest president in American history? Comment below because I really want to hear your opinion. And if you enjoy real stories more emotional than movies, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the next story will surprise you even more.